As fun as the Nano Goblin has been, I think it's time to change our focus a little bit into something new. And that would be this. This is the TBS Chupito. This is TBS, or Team Black Sheep's newest FPV fixed wing platform. It's built along the same lines as the Mojito. It's much smaller, a little bit less intimidating overall, and I think it's probably one of the best overall FPV platforms, fixed wing that I've seen in a very long time. I think there's not much that's going to hold a candle to this, and I'll go over that here in a second. It's just, it seems like it's been built by someone who has flown lots of other planes and knows what works and doesn't work. This just seems like the perfect culmination of the knowledge of someone who has flown lots of planes, and it definitely shows in the design. First, let's take a look at some of the battery layouts and the size comparisons between other planes. Here you can see side by sides with the Nano Goblin as well as a Dolphin, which I think are pretty close comparisons to what this plane is aiming at. You know, the Dolphin has sort of been the standard, or at least for a while was the standard on how fixed wing FPV platforms should be built. It obviously has its shortcomings, and the Dolphin Pro is kind of a step back in my opinion from what the Dolphin is. But anyway, here are some side-by-side shots. You can see it's slightly smaller than the Dolphin, and I would say it's probably closer in size to the Nano Goblin, but it is slightly larger than the Nano Goblin. Just really good dimensions, I think. Not too big, not too small. Good bay size. You'll see that here in a second. I think it fits very well. It's very close in size to the Nano Drac. You can see here they're almost the same profile, almost exactly the same top-down profile. But you'll see there's quite a bit differences, especially in the fuselage and just the overall plane itself. But you can see here, whereas the battery that I plan on putting into this thing is the SMC 1400 milliamp 6S battery. That's something that would actually struggle to fit in the Nano Drac just because of how slender the canopy is. You can see sort of here it would bulge for sure. But this Chupito fits it just fine. You can see I'm going to go through here the different battery sizes. I'll start with the just a 4S 21700 pack, just a square pack, or I guess a rectangle pack, and you can see it tucks in there just totally fine. Now, whether or not these batteries will balance, that's something that you'll have to determine. I don't unfortunately have the electronics kit yet. Still waiting on that to get this in the air. But yeah, we'll go through the rest of the batteries here. Here's a laydown 4S 1P lithium ion pack with 21700 cells, and it fits very, very snugly and it just fine. There's plenty of room to not be bumping into something, and it seems like this canopy was designed around the dimensions of lithium ion cells, which is always a nice thing to have. I probably won't run this on that. I'll probably keep it light with 6S lipos, but it's good to see that that's a consideration. If you wanted to run this on some big lithium ion batteries, you definitely could, and you'll see that here in a second. Here's a 4S 2P lithium ion pack, a 10,000 milliamp hour 4S pack, and you can see it tucks in there, as well as I'll test with the canopy here. You can see that the canopy latch is closed perfectly fine, and there's no foam jutting out anywhere around the canopy. It just fits it, no problem at all, with room to spare. So with the biggest test here, this is the a 6S 1P 21700 lithium ion battery. It's a dark lithium, I forget what it's called. They make pretty good batteries, a little expensive, but they make good batteries. And here you can see it fits in there. Balancing is going to be a different story. I think you might be able to get away with balancing this if it's pushed all the way back against the as far back as it'll go. You can see it fits, and again the latch closes and there's no real deformation in the foam. It just fits, and that is incredible with the profile of this this fuselage to have big batteries like that fitting. Again, I won't run those, but it's crazy to see that this is probably the first FPV plane that I've had that it seems to be built around accommodating lithium-ion cells, because typically the battery bay is just, or the main bay is just what it is, and you got to try and fit what you can in there. But it definitely seems like there was extra attention in the battery bay, I guess you could say. There's one big bay, but the front section of the battery bay. So yeah, definitely impressed with how the Chupito handles batteries, and it does have a nice. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about the clipping of the canopy, but it seems very secure, and I'm not too worried. As well as the front of the canopy, the hatch has, I'm gonna call it a hoof because that's what it looks like to me. It's definitely a very unique way of capturing the front of the canopy that I haven't seen on any other plane, and it just, again, it shows that the person who designed this really has flown lots of planes and understands that it's very frustrating to have an actual sort of foam latch go under the scoop or under the nose there, because that can interfere with lots of things. Antenna, batteries, it's always a hassle having an extra piece of foam, and this feels, it doesn't feel like it's an extra piece. It's just the way that the canopy was designed to be molded, that it slots in there and keeps itself in place. It doesn't take up extra room in the canopy, which is great, and I think allows it to fit the camera cage a little bit easier, as well as the batteries a little bit easier. But yeah, first impressions on the canopy, I really like it, and this whole plane overall is held together very well. You almost don't need any glue, and I believe that was the original design, is to not really need glue, to swap parts out relatively quickly without needing to glue things in place. I don't think that's possible because of the way that the vertical stabilizers are in there, but still, you can see here the wings are held in place with 2 carbon spars, and then they have hooks going into the fuselage which are captured with rubber bands, and or a rubber band, and I think that works very well. You may have to get a replacement rubber band. I would hope that TBS has backups or spares available of these. I'd probably just buy a pack of, I don't know, 20, 25, and just swap them out like every few months or so. Rubber, at least in my experience, tends to dry rot pretty quick, and while these wings probably won't fall off, I wouldn't want to use an old crusty rubber band to keep the wings on. But still, I kind of like that design. It seems like a good design. And you can sort of see here as well the motor mount, and the reason I think you can't really go glueless in this, you can see that the motor mount is captured by the spar going through the vertical stabilizer, as well as the spar going through the back of the wings there, and it holds it very securely. The only downside is the vertical stabilizer has to get glued in. It doesn't stay in well enough, in my opinion, to not glue it, both the top vertical stabilizer and the bottom. So you sort of lose that ability to swap out a motor, or you can see there's definitely the intent there, but yeah, you'll end up having to glue these, and it just sort of negates that. But still, nice to see that it was something that was thought of. Some planes, the motor mount is just smacked onto the back. You glue it on and that's it, and that's not really the case here. There's much more mechanical actual rods holding in the motor mount than just glue on the back there. Here you can sort of see the mount for the electronics here. It's just a plywood board that slots in and screws in place. I will have to see how the electronics kit comes in. They do have their own special TBS AIO, which is a flight controller and speed controller in one. And it's designed to have just the motor connect with M30, I believe that's the connector, to the back of the flight controller, and it's basically all ready to go. So I'll have to see how that wires up, and I'll make a future video when the electronics come in. But it seems like a decent setup for now. It isn't super spacious, but I think the electronics and the way, if you just use the TBS electronics, it'll probably be just fine. You don't really need too much more room than that. Another detail that I really thought was cool was you can see underneath the battery bay. By the way, I did have to glue this in with the kit. I didn't show that, but I did have to glue it in. But you can see under the actual battery bay, you can see a channel there, a nice deep channel running along underneath the battery bay, and that's for your digital, or I guess whatever kind of video transmitter, the wires you need to run to your digital or any other video transmitter. And I thought that was really cool that it's nice and deep, and it's very evident that someone thought about it. And it wasn't just you have to run your wires around the side of the battery, which is always kind of a pain because I have to glue them in, or if you don't glue them in, they're just going to be hanging out everywhere. And just nice to have a clean, defined path on where the wires go. And as well as it just goes through the entire bay. It's super nice and deep. I would imagine by the time I go to wire this up, it's going to be really quick. And I guess speaking of the video transmitters, here you can see the cage there for, I believe it's probably mostly designed for digital video systems. Here you can see my 04 Pro unit there mounted up. They have pre-selected holes or pre-drilled holes, and you just mount it up. I believe it's probably set up for most, at least DJI 04, 03, and I would assume most other standard camera mounts will be just fine in there. You can see there's sort of cutouts for a fan almost. I don't think I'll put a fan in there. I think there's going to be plenty of airflow in here. But yeah, you can also see where the notches are that hold it in place into the foam. It's just a friction fit. I think I'll keep it as a friction fit. We'll see how that holds up over time. I think it'll be okay, but it is a nice detail to be able to just pull out the digital system completely relatively easily. So that is absolutely a nice thing to have. You can see here the sort of grooves that fit into the foam there that hold this in place. I did mention the airflow, and I probably won't be running a fan, and that's because this nose has quite a good amount of airflow here, and it's designed to have airflow go through the nose, past the camera, past the digital video transmitter, past the battery, and right about where the flight controller AIO stack is. There's an exit down below there, and I think that should be plenty of airflow for the entire plane. And it's nice to see that someone didn't just put a tiny little scoop in the nose and call it a day. Yeah, I'm really happy with this plane overall. I think it has basically everything you want in a relatively small FPV compact size plane. Servo horns on top, good profile overall, nice fuselage that's easy to grab. There's not too much more you could ask for. I wish it was in a different foam, but we'll see how this holds up. I'll have to goop it a little bit and give some protection. But overall, I'm excited to get this thing in the air, and I think it's going to be a great plane. So anyway, stay tuned in for future videos on the Chupito, and I will catch you in the next one.